I'm Paul Arthur. This is Forum Daily West. Here are some of the top stories we have lined up for you tonight. It's back to school for students, but parents are worried about how long that will last. Plus, Prime Minister Mark Carney huddles with his cabinet to come up with a game plan for the fall session of Parliament. And drivers adjust to more lane changes as repairs continue to the Whoop Up Drive Bridge. Thanks for joining us. As kids headed back to school today in Alberta, the threat of a province-wide teachers' strike looms over their parents' heads. Contract talks between the Alberta Teachers Association and the provincial government stalled last week, and the education minister has accused the group of playing politics. The two sides are at odds on a range of issues, including wages. The union has to give 72 hours notice before its roughly 51,000 members can go on strike. So how are parents feeling about this potential strike? And this morning, BCN spoke with parents and school officials in Lethbridge and asked them one key question. What's your plan B in case a strike does happen? Here's what they had to say.
Not so much a concern, but it's kind of hard not knowing what's going to happen to prepare. And right now, I actually just stay home with my kids. So for me, luckily it won't affect me, but I feel for the parents that work and don't have another option, so hopefully it doesn't happen.
Definitely brings a bit of uncertainty as we start the school year. Obviously hopeful that our year isn't disrupted too much as we start off. I guess we'll see what happens though. Thankfully my kids are old enough that if there is a strike, it doesn't disrupt things too much for us. Definitely feel for people who have younger children though. I mean, it's huge to have your life disrupted like that.
There's no doubt. I think there is a lot of wonder, a lot of, that hope of not having to take that action, but also that acceptance that if that is what we do, then we'll follow whatever plans are possible. But absolutely, when your livelihood is a little bit unsure, along with some other changes in legislation coming into effect this year and all of the different pieces that are on teachers' plates, they're doing their best to manage all of that, but it definitely can weigh on people for lots of different reasons.
Alberta teachers last went on strike back in 2002. The big issues then were familiar issues, large class sizes and wages. As excited students across the city return to classes, safety remains a top priority and a shared responsibility. This morning outside St. Patrick Fine Arts Elementary School, the Alberta Motor Association and Lethbridge Police Service joined forces to help raise awareness and highlight the important role school safety patrols play.
I feel good because I'm helping out the community. I learned the importance of safety and keeping people safe.
That it's a big responsibility. Happy because I see my friends.
It feels good that I'm keeping people safe.
The kids at this age, they often find that they're looking for leadership opportunities, so Safety Patrol with AMA is one of those natural ways for them to do that. We have about 40 patrollers out of just over 80 eligible students. So they really are keen to help out and do the training and then be part of that team all year long.
Showing the importance of having school safety patrollers at our crosswalks. It is really important that it's a joint venture that we're keeping our crosswalks safe, and together with our school patrollers and our community as well as our drivers, we're ensuring that kids get to and from school safely every day. So AMA school safety patrollers have been on the crosswalk for over 85 years. During that time period, there's been 0 serious injuries or fatalities, which really shows the credibility to the program and the importance of having patrollers on our crosswalks in our city. It is really important, the job that they do every day. They're out there, they're making eye contact with drivers, they're helping kids get across the street safely, reminding pedestrians that it's point, pause and proceed in their procedure, as well as helping the kids with that as they cross.
We all need that reminder to slow down and readjust with the start of the new school season. Last year was a tough year. We had a number of students struck on their way to school, so this is hugely important. It seems small, but it's huge. Have awareness. Just because you hit the green light doesn't necessarily mean it's safe to go.
School kid safety is a very, very important component of this Vision Zero, and therefore we do a lot of operational improvements every year at schools. As you see here, we have this crosswalk painted. We add temporary curb extensions to reduce the walking distance at many school locations. We added signals.
And there will be a safety patrol starting next week at the new West Cooley Station School. When When we return, we will have more of the top stories from the West with Forum Daily West. Alberta's education minister is telling school boards to pause a government order to remove books with explicit sexual content from libraries. Dimitrios Nicolaides says the pause is in effect until further notice. A draft list from Edmonton Public Schools contained more than 200 titles, including Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. That prompted the author to condemn Premier Danielle Smith online over the weekend. A new report has found that a lot of Canadian youth are facing bullying and poverty. The report, called Raising Canada, commissioned by the charity organization Children First Canada, says bullying, poverty, and mental illness are on the rise among Canadian youth. Sarah Austin, founder and CEO of the organization, says this year's findings highlight a generation at risk.
We now have 1.4 million children, or 13.4% of our kids, experiencing poverty. That's a really alarming number, and particularly to see that it's the highest number since 2017. Another statistic that really jumped out to me was the concern around bullying. An overwhelming majority, 71% of our kids experiencing bullying. And even more distressing to see that is that there's a disconnect between what children feel is happening in their classrooms and what their teachers believe is happening. The report showed that 71% of teachers felt that they had taken action to address bullying in their classrooms, but only 25% of students felt that they were supported within their school setting. It really points to a disconnect of what's happening in the lives of our children. It's not to say that teachers don't care or are not trying, but it really points to the fact that our kids are struggling in ways that we as adults haven't fully grasped, and that we need to work together with our children to find solutions. At a very concrete level, I believe change begins at home. And so, for parents, grandparents, people who have kids in your lives, to be talking to the kids who you know and love, to talk about the challenges they face. Don't take the easy answer, oh, I'm okay, or everything's fine. Dig deeper. Talk about the things that they're seeing and experiencing online. Talk about what's happening in their classrooms. Talk about their hopes and their fears. And figure out what the challenges are that they're facing, and have honest conversations about what it will take to improve their lives.
Other threats to youth outlined in the report include childhood mistreatment, vaccine-preventable illnesses, and racism. Austin says the goal of issuing this report every year is to spark concrete action by policymakers. Prime Minister Mark Carney is holding private meetings with his cabinet in Toronto this week ahead of the fall legislative sitting. This is Carney's second cabinet retreat since winning the spring election, and the first involving his new chief of staff. While the Prime Minister's office has not said what is on the agenda, it's clear that U.S. President Donald Trump's shadow will loom over these meetings.
They have a major budget coming up in fall. It's very rare that you have a budget in October. Mark Carney had said that the circumstances were a little bit too unclear and murky to have one in the spring, and the financial picture has become a bit clearer now that there's been a bit more certainty. On the economic side of things, he's expected to both have an increase in spending with regards to the military and various promises he's made during the campaign in the spring. But then on the other side, he's also talked about a new fiscal discipline, spending review, and these sorts of things. The other big agenda item for them that has clearly been on their agenda throughout the summer has been major projects. They want to get big industrial projects and infrastructure projects started faster. They've said that it's taken too long to get these things approved, and they've changed the process for that. And then, of course, Donald Trump has not gone away. This is something that is looming in the background. Trump tariffs, whether Trump continues to escalate and play games with Canada, whether he tries to reopen the trade pact we have with the U.S. and Mexico early, ahead of schedule. The Liberals will be meeting in Edmonton on the second week of September. These kind of meetings are an opportunity for the government to put a spotlight on their agenda, what they're trying to do, what they're trying to achieve, how they're trying to advance the ball down the field, and go on the offensive a bit, because when Parliament comes back, we know it's a minority Parliament. The Conservatives and the Bloc have large numbers in the House of Commons, and they can start to inflict some political pressure and put the government on their back feet a bit.
The federal finance minister says service delays and access challenges Canadians are experiencing with Canada Revenue Agency call centres are unacceptable. Francois-Philippe Champagne wants to address the issues within 100 days. Champagne says he has asked the CRA to take concrete steps which could involve reallocating or adding personnel and expanding digital filing options for Canadians. This comes as Ottawa plans spending cuts across the public service. A local electrical company is extending its long-term relationship with the Lethbridge Interfaith Food Bank. After contributing $100,000 over the past 5 years, Mikado Electric is continuing its guardianship with another 5-year $100,000 commitment. We will be right back with more news from Forum Daily West. The federal NDP has officially launched the race to find its next leader. Former leader Jagmeet Singh resigned after he and the party lost badly in Alberta's federal election, April's federal election, Registered party members will vote on Singh's permanent successor at a national convention in March using a ranked ballot as the party tries to find new direction. Interim leader Don Davies recently admitted that the NDP's supply and confidence deal with the Liberals was a significant contributor to the party's collapse. The Premier of Alberta is kicking off the second leg of her province-wide Alberta Next Town Hall tour tonight. Danielle Smith will be in Medicine Hat for the tour that's addressing various topics, including Alberta's grievances with Ottawa. The first 5 town halls have addressed whether Alberta should separate from Canada and create a provincial pension plan. Loud cheers for mass deportations were also heard at the most recent gathering in Lloydminster. It's a hazy day for much of Alberta and western Saskatchewan today as wildfire smoke from northern Canada drifts into the prairies. Here's the Canadian government's map of wildfire smoke, fine particulate matter. This model covers Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of this week. It shows smoke intensifying over the Northwest Territories, the prairies, and British Columbia before heading east over Nunavut. Air quality warnings are in effect as thick smoke hangs over the regions. Wildfires in the Northwest Territories, including one not far from the hamlet of Fort Providence, have forced hundreds to flee from their homes. The fire southwest of Yellowknife has so far scorched 890 square kilometers of land. Meanwhile, Nova Scotia's largest wildfire is burning out of control. Officials say winds have increased the intensity at the southern end of the nearly 85,000 square kilometer blaze in Annapolis Valley, but there's been no new reports of damage to the homes. And a heat warning is in effect in parts of BC, as some 160 active wildfires burn across that province. More fires will likely be detected in the coming days following thousands of lightning strikes over the Labor Day long weekend. Picket lines are going up in 3 BC cities today as industrial action begins across the province. The union representing thousands of public service workers announced last week that a 72-hour notice of a potential strike had been issued and the deadline expired after midnight last night. The union has about 34,000 members in fields including social services, healthcare, education, government liquor stores, prisons, and courts. But the government has said essential services will be unaffected. Quebec has turned down federal funding aimed at combating systemic racism in the criminal justice system. Ottawa first offered nearly $7 million in funding to provinces and territories back in 2021. The money was aimed at addressing the overrepresentation of Black people in the criminal justice system by promoting the use of race and cultural assessments before sentencing. While most provinces have accepted the funding, the Quebec government says it doesn't subscribe to the approach on which the funding program is based, namely systemic racism. Belgium will move toward recognizing a Palestinian state as Israel steps up its offensive in the Gaza Strip. It joins Canada and several other nations that have announced their intention to recognize a Palestinian state at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly this month. Prime Minister Mark Carney has said the move will be predicated on the Palestinian Authority carrying out reforms and holding an election next year in which Hamas can play no part. The Embassy of Israel rejected Canada's endorsement of Palestinian statehood. The maker of ChatGPT is adjusting how its chatbots respond to teenagers and users showing signs of distress. OpenAI plans to introduce new controls for parents to link their accounts to their teen's account. It says ChatGPT will also redirect distressing conversations to more capable artificial intelligence models. Meanwhile, Meta is blocking its chatbots from discussing self-harm and suicide with teens, directing them to expert resources. The City of Lethbridge provided an update on the status of Whoop Up Drive Tuesday morning. The acting director for infrastructure services says last week's concrete pour was successful, with work now being focused on the outer westbound lane. A girder was damaged when a flatbed trailer carrying heavy equipment struck the bridge's underside last month. It showed that it is more damaged than crews thought, and yet the city claims the bridge is still considered safe to drive on as repair plans progress. That is your Forum Daily West Report. I'm Paul Arthur. Thanks so much for watching.